Pandoro, my favorite Christmas dessert and a tradition in my Italian household. This golden star-shaped cake was always a centerpiece of our holiday table. Join me today as I show you how to make it from scratch and bring a piece of Italy to your celebrations. Pandoro, my favorite Christmas dessert, owner of Charmin Chic Baking, and welcome to my channel. To make a good Pandoro, you need type 00 flour, which is a fine grind flour with a soft and silky texture. I'm going to use quick rise yeast for this recipe as I can't easily find fresh yeast. This is a 2-day process, so if you see recipes calling for a quick Pandoro, please skip it. We're going to start by making the starter in the morning, which you need to mix together flour, yeast, and water. If you already have a starter from sourdough baking, you can use that as well, but it may make your Pandoro a little tangier. The original recipe calls for 30 grams of water, but it makes too stiff a dough, so I'm going to add a little bit more. You don't need to mix it too much, just want to get a good starter going. Once mixed, cover in plastic and let it rise in a warm place for 8 hours. As I mentioned before, making Pandoro is a 2-day process, so I would advise making the starter in the morning. Or you can make this as a weekend recipe, making the starter on a Saturday morning, and the Pandoro will be ready by Sunday evening, perfect for a post-dinner dessert. After 8 hours, we're going to make the first dough by mixing in the sugar and yeast into the flour. Then, lightly beat the eggs and add those to the dry mixture. Next, add the starter and mix it with a fork before moving on to kneading. This dough is very sticky, and while I tried using my KitchenAid mixer with the dough hook, it didn't work very well because my Southern quart mixer was too large for the small amount of dough. If you do have a 5-quart mixer, you might have better luck doing this step in the mixer. Or you can double this recipe, which should be fine to use in a 7-quart mixer. You can even use the dough setting on a bread machine if you have one. I'm kneading the dough with wet hands using a series of slap and folds, a technique often used in high hydration sourdough bread. A dough scraper can be helpful during this process. After 10 minutes of kneading, let the dough rest for 5 minutes before repeating. After half an hour, test the dough using the window pane method. If the dough rips, the gluten structure hasn't fully established, so continue kneading. The dough becomes less sticky as you work it, so keep going. Just don't add any more flour. Then cover the dough and let it rest for half an hour. This is how the first dough should look like when done. Then place the dough in a bowl and let it proof for 2 hours before transferring to the fridge to bulk ferment for 14 hours. Meanwhile, prepare the aromatic honey. Combine 30 grams of honey with the grated zest of 1 orange and 1 lemon. Add the vanilla extract and mix well. Then cover and let it rest overnight to allow the flavors to meld. The next morning, make the final dough. You'll notice the first dough poofed a little, but not doubled. But look at those bubbles. You can mix the final dough in a 7-quart mixer. Add the sugar and salt to the flour and give it a little mix. Next, add the first dough to the flour mixture. Then beat the eggs with the egg yolks and add it to this mixture. Once the eggs are incorporated, add the aromatic honey. Stop the mixer and scrape down the sides and bottom. You'll notice this dough will also be very sticky. Finally, add the softened butter a little at a time, waiting for each piece to be incorporated before adding the next. The dough will be sticky, but easy enough to handle. Using a bench scraper and wet hands, do 2 final sets of slap and folds or coil folds, resting 10 minutes in between each set. The dough will be ready when you perform the window pane test, which I forgot to show here. The dough will be soft, smooth, and silky. This makes a 1 kilo Pandoro, but the mold I have is for 750 grams, so I'm going to portion 3/4 into my Pandoro pan, which is well greased with butter and dusted with flour. The rest will go into a paper Panettone mold. Cover the pan or mold with plastic wrap and a towel or blanket if your room is cool, then let it rise in a warm place for about 6 hours. The Pandoro is ready to bake when it rises to about 1 inch from the top of the pan or mold. Then preheat the oven to 338 degrees Fahrenheit and bake for 45 minutes to an hour for a 1 kilo Pandoro until dark brown. Allow the Pandoro to cool for 15 minutes on a wire rack before releasing from the pan. Then run a knife along the edges and the Pandoro should release easily. It's late and I'm going to test this as my bedtime snack. Look how fluffy this cake is. It really is a cross between cake and bread, whereas its sister dessert, Panettone, is more chewy bread-like. I personally like Pandoro much better. To store and decorate your Pandoro, keep it covered in a plastic bag, preferably clear for aesthetics, and add 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. Then shake the bag to completely cover the cake with the sugar. The Pandoro will keep fresh up to 5 days, but honestly, I don't think it will last that long. I love the simplicity of Pandoro, as you can use any spread like Nutella or the infamous pistachio cream that marries well with it. If you don't have a Pandoro mold, you can also use a tall cake pan or even a bundt pan. It won't be the typical star shape, but just as pretty, and it will bake the same. hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave me your comments below. Wishing everyone a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.